everyone. Welcome to the House Calls. I'm Dr. Quack, and tonight I have a special guest here. Let me tell you, if you're talking about old school 80s wrestling, you're talking about none other than my guest, WWF Tag Team Champion, NWA Tag Team Champion, ladies and gentlemen, Princess Victoria.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, welcome to the show.
I love that intro.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, who is that? Who was that singing?
Oh, singing? I'm not sure the band name. I found them and I put them in there and I was like, this is a good song.
It's an excellent song. Now you're going to have me up all night Googling it.
That's awesome. Yeah, you let me know if you find out what that is. If anybody in the audience, please, by all means, let me know. So, yeah, let's get down to this because I want to ask you, what made you get into professional wrestling?
Sandy Barr tricked me into it.
Sandy Barr, yeah, that was your original trainer, right?
That was my trainer, yeah. I was in one of those situations where at 14 it was either leave home or die. And I lived in Salem, but I went to Portland because that was the nearest big city. And long story short, I got a job. The LGBT community kind of took me under their wing. If it wasn't for them, things might have been a lot different. Got myself a place to stay. They helped me get a job and all that. Helped me get some fake IDs so that I could work. Because back then you had to be 16, but you could go to the local passport photo place. And if you came in with the right person and the right president on your bill, they'd make you up a fake ID. And back then, a passport ID, not a passport, but a passport ID card was taken as ID. But anyway, I started going to the matches. And I always got general admission. And then one day I came in and I was dressed to the nines. I got my first paycheck. You know, my wings, I was flying free, and I came in dressed in this yellow chiffon dress with candy high heels and a Chinese collar. And I knew Sandy and Peggy Sandy and Sherry at that time, and Peggy, the lady who worked in his office. And I'd gotten to know a few of the wrestlers and the security guards there. And Sandy handed me a ticket. And I looked at it, instead of general admission, it was front row. And I handed it back to him. I said, "You gave me the wrong ticket." He said, "No, I didn't. That's your seat from now on." Ooh. And I don't think I ever paid for a ticket after that. But I was always front row. What I didn't realize at the time was I was on the side of the ring that the camera was focused on. And could not figure out for the life of me why these wrestlers, every time they got thrown out of the ring, they landed at my feet. Gee, I wonder why. But anyway, long story short, I was working at Denny's on 23rd and Burnside, and me and the DM got into it. And I quit my job Saturday morning. And Saturday night, I went to the matches and, dressed to the nines, like I said, dress, nylons, candies, and told Sandy, I said, "I need a job." He said, "Great, you can start right now." And I said, "Doing what?" He said, "Well, we need that swept over there. You need to go here. You need to do that." I said, and I went, "I can't do that in this dress." He said, "All right, I'll see you at 7:00 tomorrow morning," which was his flea market.
Right.
And I had been working for him 2 or 3 months. And I mean, when I say working for him, when you work for Sandy, I did everything from lay tile at his house.
Wow.
To ran print shops, a printing machine, one of the old school that had the big drum on it that turned, and it had a sheet that you had to burn. And if you wanted multicolor, for each color you used, you had to put another 3x5 sheet on the drum and roll the same piece of paper. But anyway, long story as short as Vicky can tell it, and my friends can quit laughing in the background. I came to work one night and Sandy came up to me. He said, I don't know if you know it, but I run a wrestling school. I said, no. He said, well, I've got this girl who wants to train for wrestling, and I can't let her train with the guys. Can you be a body? And my first question was, what does it pay?
That's always the big question. I agree.
All right. See, I was a wrestler before I even knew I was a wrestler. No, I don't want any hot dogs and pizza. I want green. But anyway, so I show up at training, and training actually started that time. It started Monday because we didn't have training on Sunday because his flea market was open. And I started training with this girl, and I was kind of getting into it. They at that time we were just starting Greco-Roman collegiate style wrestling. And before I knew it, it was 2 or 3 months down the road. I'm still training. The girl that I was supposed to, help wrestle had quit, a month previous. Funny thing was, he wouldn't train her with the guys, but I was training with the guys. And by the time I figured that out, I was already hooked.
I understand that. Who were you training with? Do you remember?
Oh, God. Well, I can't remember the guys in the school, but I can tell you the guys that Sandy brought in. And Sandy had a habit of this. And the reason that he did was after he started doing this, he told us as a crew, look, I'm going to be bringing somebody in at least once a week, somebody different. Well, I didn't realize at that time somebody different would have been Buddy Rose, Ed Wiskowski, Dale Lewis. But he brought in a different professional wrestler every week. And like I said, by that time I was hooked. And the reason that he said he brought in these different wrestlers was because nobody wrestles the same. Hey, kitty.
she will run around all back here.
That's cool. But anybody that was in the Pacific Northwest at the time that I was training, which was 78, 79, early part of 80, came into the school, and we ran some matches with.
Okay.
And at that time, like I said, Ed Wiskowski, the Sheep Herders, Buddy Rose. This was during the great big Buddy Rose Roddy Piper feud.
Yes, this was all out in Portland, correct?
Yes, this was all in Portland.
Okay.
And what's funny now is when I was training, unlike a lot of schools today, we trained 6 days a week.
God.
Twice. Oh, wait. Twice a day, 2 to 3 hours each session.
Wow.
And it wasn't if you were going to throw up, it's when you were going to throw up, and were you going to hit one of the 4 strategically placed trash cans on each side of the ring.
Wow.
I remember one day Terry Allen, Magnum TA, had come to train with us. And the Chautauqua Sports Arena used to be like a storage place. Mm-hmm. Where they backed in 18-wheelers to unload them. So they had this great big door that rolled up and down. And it was about 75 degrees that day. So Sandy had the door up. And I was leaning up against the ropes trying to hold myself up. And I looked over. And here was Terry. He was bent over, kneeled in the ring, almost in a thinker position. Mm-hmm. And you could see steam coming off the top of his head. And like I said, it was 75 degrees in the arena.
Wow.
Right.
You don't see that every day. I got a question from the audience here. What's your advice for someone who wants to train and wants to understand more about the business?
Find yourself a qualified trainer. Don't go by one of these fly-by-night guys who's maybe been in the business a year or even less sometimes. find yourself a qualified trainer. And if your trainer wants you to train just once a month, run. A qualified trainer, in my opinion, is going to train at least 5 days a week. And you better be sore when you leave that ring. If he's not pushing you to your maximum to where you're just about ready to tap out, don't train with him.
Definitely. That is sound advice there. I want to talk a little bit more about something here, because you and Velvet McIntyre were tag team partners, correct?
We were also opponents in the beginning.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. How did that all play out?
Well, I had been training with these guys with Sandy, and then all of a sudden, this red-haired chick showed up with, feet all the way from the floor up. And I started training with her. And before I knew it, not only were we doing the regular training school, but we had yet another session where it was just Velvet and I. Now, understand, we didn't train for 2 or 3 months or 4 or 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we trained somewhere from 6 to 9 months before we ever had our first match. Our first match was in, I believe, Idaho. I know it was for Ed Moretti. And that was the longest 10 years and 10 minutes of my life. And we just, for some reason, from the first day that Velvet and I met, we clicked. It was almost like there was magic in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Our first match was, like I said, the longest 10 years and 10 minutes. I was sweating so bad that Sandy had this thing where he insisted, I want you to jump over the top rope when you come in the ring. Well, I went to jump over the top rope to go in the ring for my very first time in front of people, paying fans, that when I went to jump, my hands were so sweaty that my right hand slipped just as I was going over the top rope.
Oh, no.
And don't ask me how, because you'll get me to lying, but somehow I ended up with my left hand on the turnbuckle and do you remember what Lanny Poffo used to do, where he'd jump up on the ring and lay there with his, like this?
Yes.
Well, that's what I did by accident. I got very lucky, because that probably would have ended my career, not with Sandy or any of the promoters, but with my own, self. That would have embarrassed me to no end. But it actually turned out great.
That's good. I'm glad you didn't get hurt on that at all, did you?
No.
You landed just right.
Well, let me tell you what, Sandy, and I thank God for this to this day, Sandy had Velvet and I in top condition before we ever walked in that ring the first time in front of fans. It ended up that one day I had come to wrestling and to training, and I lived on the other side of Portland, so I had to take the bus. And notoriously, you know how buses never run on time.
Right.
And I kept showing up 15 minutes late or so. Well, Velvet had come down from Canada and didn't have any place to stay, and she was staying with Sandy and Sherry at their house. I walked in one day and Sandy said, "I've had enough of this shit." And I went, "Oh God, I'm done." He said, "When you leave training, I'm taking you to your place. I want you to go upstairs, pack everything you own, and put it in my car." And I looked at him and said, "Why?" He said, "Because you're moving in with me. I'm tired of you being late to every training session." So, and let me tell you what, Sherry was a hell of a lady. I mean, to have 2 teenage girls in her house. And then, of course, she had Art and Sean in there, who were, I think, 12 and 13 at the time. I can't count the amount of times after Velvet and I moved in that we'd walk in our room, because we shared a room and a bed, and we'd catch Art and Sean in our blasted underwear drawer and be chasing them all the way around the house. Little perverts.
Yeah, that sounds about right there. So it sounds like you and Velvet had a good relationship outside the ring. You guys were.
Oh, we had an excellent relationship. I can honestly say I do not remember in the 4 years that I was, say 5 with training, that I had known Velvet, that we ever had even so much as a disagreement. Now, either, of course, if you look at Velvet, she's got a halo and wings. How she put up with me on the road for 4 years and never, took a baseball bat to me, I have no clue. But yeah, we're still friends to this day.
Oh, we got somebody backstage here. I want to bring him on. The manager of champions, ladies and gentlemen, Eric Nelson.
Hello.
Well,
Fancy meeting you guys here.
yay. Well, hello, Mr. Nelson. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well, ma'am. I've been following this very interesting storytelling. Like I said, you don't ever disappoint.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'm just me. Once you get me talking, it's hard to shut me up.
So I had to have the best seat in the house. Please continue. Don't let me interrupt, Doc.
No, okay. Well, fair enough. So, I mean, you and Velvet, you were tag partners. You ended up winning the NWA Tag Team Championships. And
actually, it wasn't Velvet and I who won the NWA Tag Team Champions. Sabrina, wrestling's Wonder Girl, Doris Whitlock. That was in Louisiana for Bill Watts. Velvet and I, and of course, we ended up losing them back to Joyce and Wendy. Velvet and I won the WWF Tag Team Championship in, I want that cat so bad. Is that a Himalayan?
No, she's Siamese.
Oh, they're evil. I had one. She was evil. But Velvet and I won the WWF Tag Team Championship in Madison Square Garden, working for Vince McMahon Sr.
Right, Vince Sr. Yeah, back in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Or late 70s, excuse me.
No, it was early 80s.
Early 80s, that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah. Get it straight.
Yeah, because I thought Vinnie Mac took over in '84, right?
Vinnie Mac took over in March of '84.
Yeah.
The worst day wrestling ever had.
What was it like working with Vince Sr. and Vince Jr.? What was the differences between them?
Night and day. Literally night and day. Vince Sr., anytime that we were at Madison Square Garden or at a venue in for New York that he was at, he would always come in the dressing room, if nothing more than to say hello, ask us how we were doing, give us our instructions for the night. Once Vinnie Mac took over, I never saw the man. He was too busy running behind Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper like a, puppy dog after a bone.
Jeez, that's something else.
Can you tell how much I like Vinnie Mac?
A lot of people don't have a positive opinion on him. I just want to say hi here to Misty. Thank you for the stars. And hello, Luke. Welcome to the show. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of big differences there. Something I want to talk to you about, too, because I'm kind of curious, because you had your run-ins with Moolah. How did that all start, and what happened, with the time frame?
Well, Velvet and I had been working opponents for Don Owens, Ed Moretti, and Al Tomko. And we'd been, I guess it was about a 6-month, 7-month run. And Sandy came to Velvet and I one day and said, look, I don't want to do this, but if you girls want to wrestle, you've got one choice. And he said, I have to send you to South Carolina to work with Moolah. And I had, at that time, you know, Velvet and I were friends. We'd been on the road. We knew all the guys that were wrestling. And I cannot tell you the amount of the guys that came up to me and said, you don't need to go to Moolah's. You don't want to go to Moolah's. But at that point in time, Moolah basically, Lillian Ellison basically had a stranglehold on women wrestling.
She did.
And she had the biggest stranglehold on McMahon's territory.
You once told me why that was. Do you feel comfortable sharing that?
Well, rumor has it, and the person that told me has never lied to me. Rumor has it that Flossie was Vince McMahon Sr.'s daughter. And everybody hollers that, oh, no, she was married. I can't remember the guy's name she was married to. She was married to so-and-so when she had Flossie. Do your investigative work, people, because I did. Flossie was born almost a year to the day that Moolah's divorce was final with her husband. And I don't think a lot of people know that. And I've got all the dates and all written down somewhere. Also, a lot of people don't know that Flossie, I believe her real name's Mary, took Moolah to court for neglect and abuse. And that was a front page story. And what her thing was Moolah was forcing her to be a professional wrestler and didn't care if she was sick or hurt. I agree. That she had to go in the ring. And this is not my words. This is what was in the newspaper article. And anybody who wants to can go to Google and look it up, because that's how I found it.
I'm definitely going to have to do that. I'm kind of curious about this. How did it turn out that suit there that she put against her?
That has never been told.
Wow.
That I know of. I have not been able to find, you know, the finish of it. I found the front page article. And it was a South Carolina newspaper, of course. Mm-hmm. And it shows Flossie and Moolah going into the courtroom. Now, if it's a lie, the newspaper told it. Of course, these days, that wouldn't be too far off.
Yeah, sometimes that happens with the internet, definitely. You never know what's a real story and what isn't, but that's definitely interesting to hear about.
Yeah, well, that story's been going around the business.
Do you believe it to be true?
Yeah.
You do?
Okay. Because of the person who told me.
Okay. This
person has never lied to me, and not a person that talks about people. Mm-hmm. But I literally found this out on my trip to South Carolina, because one of my friends that was a wrestler said, why don't you stop in and take a break? You know, stay here for a week or two, relax. And when I got there, he started talking to me. He said, Vicky, I will give you a place to stay for free. I will do everything I can to get you on your feet, set you up with a job, the whole 9 yards, if you don't go to Moolah's. Nobody wanted me to go to Moolah's.
But you had
on that note, I'll be right back, guys.
Okay.
Well, if I wanted to wrestle, yeah.
Definitely. It makes a lot of sense. So you went down to Moolah's down in South Carolina, correct?
Yes.
Down Columbia. In the houses. What was that like? Because, I've seen pictures of the houses. What was it like living in there?
Well, number one, I didn't live in Moolah's house. None of us did except for Katie. Moolah had a bunch of these houses.
Yeah, the small houses outside. I seen that picture. What was that like?
Well, what those were old military bunkhouses from Fort Jackson. Fort Jackson was upgrading the housing for our military, and they auctioned off these houses, and Moolah bought them from the military and put them on the property. They were 2 and 3 bedroom, and she had anywhere between 2 and 4 girls living in each place. And it didn't matter if it was 1, 2, or 4, everybody paid $300 a month. Now, can you imagine back in the early 80s getting $1,200 for basically a bunk
Right.
shack? And if she had 4 girls in there, she not only was she taking her manager's percent,
Right.
and stealing us blind, and then taking her manager's percent on top of that, she was getting anywhere from $300 to $1,200 per house.
Wow, she was seriously making some money in 1980s. You know, that's a lot of cash.
Well, yeah, and it didn't matter if we were on the road for a year and never came back to the house, you still had to pay that $300 a month.
How was the food? I'm curious. Did she give you normal standard food, or what was it like?
Moolah didn't give us anything.
Really? So it's pretty much fend for yourself and eat when you can, or?
Yep. She fed her poodle.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, I remember one day, and it's really odd. And I was on guard that Moolah would invite us to the house unless it was for Christmas or Thanksgiving. Now then, she did feed us. I will give her credit for that. On Thanksgiving and Christmas, she fed us well. But she had invited me to dinner, and it wasn't Thanksgiving or Christmas, so I'm bringing a little test strip to find out if there's arsenic or what in the food. And I walked in, she said, "I hope you like squirrel stew."
Wow.
Well, I think she thought she was pulling something on me. What she didn't understand is she was talking to a girl who knew what it was like to be hungry 2 and 3 days in a row by the time I was 5. And if it didn't eat me, I'd eat it. So I'm sitting there, I'm eating squirrel stew, and Moolah said, "Here," and handed me a jalapeno pepper, a fresh one, not a pickled one, a fresh one. Wow. And I took a big old chunk and dug in, and Katie's up at the stove. Excuse me. Boiling this huge chicken, but it wasn't for dinner. Not my dinner anyway. It was for the poodle. So while I'm sitting at the dining room table eating squirrel stew with jalapeno peppers, Moolah's poodle is eating the best chicken money can buy.
Wow. That is some crazy stuff there.
Well, Velvet tells a story, and so does Leilani Kai. There was one day that Velvet went over to Leilani's and said, "Do you have any vegetables or potatoes or anything like that?" And before it was all said and done, there was 3 or 4 of the girls had gotten together and gotten what little bit of food they had in the house and had made a big old stew.
Mm-hmm.
If that tells you how bad it was.
That doesn't sound like great conditions to be training in,
Well, that was Moolah. And see, everybody says, "Oh, Moolah trained this girl," and Moolah, and everybody, and I won't say everybody, but a lot of people have it mistaken that Moolah trained me. Mm-hmm. Moolah had nothing to do with my training. The only time I was ever in the ring with Moolah is when we were at a match and we were opponents.
Okay.
Now, in the barn that everybody talks about with the ring where we all trained at,
mm-hmm.
Number one, Donna Cristantello was the person that was in the gym running the training.
She was tough. I've seen her in matches. She was a physical person.
Donna, and not only that, Donna was a hell of a lady.
Yeah.
Everybody on the property called Donna mom. I mean, she was that person you could go to about anything. And I was lucky enough to be living with her. And in training, she really cared. You know, if you weren't taking a bump right, she was going to get up there and she was going to show you how to take it. And I saw her do this with many trainees that came to Moolah's while I was there. Donna was one hell of a lady, and I miss her to this day. But as far as Moolah training anybody, no, I never saw Moolah get in the ring. In fact, there was one day that there was this trainee came in, and it was, and that's what, now this is one thing I can say about Moolah's training camp.
Okay.
Moolah was the same as Sandy was. Well, Donna Cristantello was the same as Sandy was. When you were home, whether you were a seasoned veteran or whether you were new, you were at training in the morning for 2 hours and at night for 2 hours. Wow. And the main people that I trained with at Moolah's was Wendy Richter, Joyce Grable, Judy Martin, Leilani Kai. Those were the four main ones, and of course Velvet. There's a picture going around of all of us in the gym. There was Betty Clark was there.
Yeah, I've seen this photo.
Yeah. But it was Donna who was in the ring.
Who did you bunk with?
I bunked with Donna Cristantello.
Okay, so you were with Mom, so that was perfect.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. and Moolah had this rule, you know, if you weren't working, you know, a shoot job, you had to be in by 10 o'clock at night because she'd close the gate where you couldn't get your car in to where you were living. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times I climbed that gate. And see, where Donna and I lived is you drive in the driveway and there's two brick columns with this gate, and to your immediate right was Moolah's house. Well, just past Moolah's house was the barn, and to the left of the barn, to the side of Moolah's house, was the cabin that I was living in with Donna Cristantello. So, and I'd always, every time I climbed that damn gate, I didn't know she had, you know, a big security system. I'd see a light go on upstairs. Well, that was me coming in, and Moolah got notice that somebody had broke into the property, and it was me.
Wow. Yeah, she probably got upset on that. So
yeah, and she'd made it, and God forbid if you pissed her off and you had a match with her that night.
I'm sure she was probably a lot of violence in there, I can imagine.
Oh, Idaho to say the least.
Now, a lot of people would say she was taking liberties on you guys. Like there would be some sort of, you know, what they call it, kind of sexual favors and things like that were going around. What do you want to talk about on that?
I only have one instance where that is even slightly true.
Mm-hmm.
But this rumor about Moolah's girls,
being a pimp, basically,
having to sleep with promoters to get booked,
right?
Then I should have never had a match in my entire life. Because number one, the only good-looking promoter I've ever seen was Bill Watts.
The cowboy hat did it, didn't it?
That's it. You got it. And no, and this thing about Moolah giving us drugs. I was working with Moolah, and we were going to Nassau, and I didn't know that they already had pot over there, so I snuck this big bud of pot in my toe. Yes, in the 80s, I smoked pot. Oh my God.
I know, right?
And the first night we were there, you know, of course, we're all excited. We're on Nassau. We're up in this motel up on the hill. Number one, no phone, no TV. It was basically a 10 by 12 room with 2 twin beds in it. Well, me and one of the guys from the other promoter, you know, after the matches that night, we walked down the hill and we were sitting on the dock, you know, just, you know, watching the fish and all that off the dock, saw the sun come in. And so we walk back up the hill. I go to take a nap because we got a match that night. And here comes Moolah busting in the door. And this guy, I guess, had got caught with some speed, which why you're a wrestler and you take speed, I have no clue.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, no.
Pain pills, alcohol, pot, yes, I can see that. But, you know, what I wanted to do when I got done with the match was chill and try to sleep. But anyway, she came in and she's accusing me of this and accusing me of bringing this speed, you know, through customs and all that. And I went, no. I said, and I reached up, I said, and I grabbed my little plastic cigarette container. You remember how we used to roll it up in this? And I said, this is what I brought in. And it was a bud. It was a pot bud. Right. Well, what had happened was this little shit had got caught and he had dumped everything on me. Oh, I got this from Princess. Well, anybody that's ever been around me in the business knows speed is the last thing I will do.
Right.
But I showed her the pot and she chewed me up one side and down the other over pot. And what her thing was, and see, this was before 911 and all that. Mm-hmm. It was in the toe of my shoe. Now I wouldn't even try.
Right.
But her thing was, and she let me know it for 20 damn minutes, that because we were all in a group and all the tickets were bought by her, if I had gotten caught with the pot going through customs, everybody would have been arrested. So that right there tells you Moolah didn't hand the girls a bunch of drugs. She didn't even like us drinking.
Right, that's legal.
Well, on the property, she didn't want us drinking when we were on the property.
Right.
And Katie most especially. Katie lived with her.
Right.
But Katie and I don't know if you know it, but there were 2 adjoining ponds on the property. Mm-hmm. Well, Katie and I would walk out on the dock and be fishing. Mm-hmm. Well, I had carried a 6-pack of beer out there and dropped it on a rope under the dock in the water. And Katie and I'd be sitting out there, you know, getting a buzz. Because, you know, it's underwater. She walked out, she wouldn't see it.
Right.
But if that answers your question, as far as the drugs were concerned, now I can tell you that when I broke my neck.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that too. Yeah, because that night you were in a tag team match, correct?
I was in a tag team match. Velvet McIntyre, my partner. Mm-hmm. We were tag team champs at the time. We were going up against...
Leilani was in that, right?
Yes, Leilani was in it, and so was Despina Montagas.
Yes.
And what happened was just one of those things. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't planned. It wasn't on purpose.
Freak accident.
Right. She picked me up, and I can't remember if it was for a pile driver or to hang me in the corner, mm-hmm. so Leilani could hold my legs while she kicked me in the stomach. But she tripped. Now I don't know if there was a rip in the mat or there was a tear, but she tripped. And when she tripped, she literally sat on my head.
Ugh.
And talk about a pile driver from hell.
Yeah, I just saw that video recently, like from the one angle. It looked pretty rough.
No, you didn't.
They had the one on YouTube. It's on there.
No, it's not. September 1st was not the day that I broke my neck.
Really? Okay. So yeah, clarify this. I'm curious now.
Everybody thinks it was September 1st. No, the match that I broke my neck in was a dark match.
Oh.
It was the same week as that match.
Okay.
But it was not that match. Everybody thinks that when Velvet did that, jumped over.
Yeah, like a sunset flip almost.
Right. That she broke my neck when she did that. That's not true. It was not that night. The last night was somewhere in Pennsylvania. And I believe Velvet has the place. In fact, I know she does. But anyway, Despina picked me up, tripped, sat on my head. I didn't even know my neck was broke. I finished the match.
Rush.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I go back up to the dressing room and sit down. I'm cooling off, and I go to lean forward to unlace my boot, and I feel something tug really bad. And like all wrestlers, I leaned back and went, oh, hell, what muscle have I pulled now?
Yeah.
So I sat there, I guess, I can't even tell you, another 5 or 10 minutes. And I remember leaning forward to undo my boot. And then everything is gone. And I don't know how, I must have yelled really loud because from what I understand, every wrestler in the building was in the girls' dressing room within seconds. The next thing that I remember, I'm laying on my back, I'm looking up, and there's this guy to my left, and there's red lights here, and I'm laying down, and I somehow figured out I was on a gurney. Fade to black. Don't remember anything from there. Don't remember the ride. Remember the next thing, I'm in the hospital. I'm talking to a doctor who's telling me my neck is broke and that I've got to have surgery. And I told him, oh, hell no, you vultures aren't going to operate on me because every time you guys have operated on any of my friends in the business, you've made the situation worse. And the doctor looked at me and said, well, if you don't have this operation, you'll never lift over 20 pounds again in your life.
Wow.
Now fade to black again. This is in Pennsylvania. The next thing I remember, and don't ask me how many days it was later, I'm in South Carolina.
Okay.
Walking. And this is where my memory starts, is I'm walking beside Moolah, and she's going, all right, come on, we need to go see if you can take a bump now. And I remember taking that bump, and I remember screaming to high heaven. The next thing I remember is Moolah's got me in her office inside her house. And she wants me to talk to this guy on the phone.
Okay.
And I'm not going to mention his name, but he's from Holland. And I'm sure every one of the people that have any knowledge in the business at all know exactly what ugly son of a bitch I'm talking about.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm on the phone with this guy, and I'm making it very clear. He wants me to come to Holland to spend a couple weeks with him. He's a super fan. Super something. But I'm making it very clear to him, yes, I'm coming over there. And he's telling me, well, I'm going to take you here and I'm going to take you there. And we're going to travel to here and travel there. But I'm making it very clear to him that it's separate motel rooms. And I've got daily memories after that. I get to Holland, land in Holland. He picks me up. And the first thing he does, he takes me to the red light district in Holland. Straight from the airport. And he points out this building. Now, if you've ever seen anything about Holland, the red light district is basically all open windows, women backlit, that are in lingerie, and they're all prostitute.
Right. Comment here. He's trying to score, it looks like. LOL.
Oh, he's trying. Long story short, there is not enough drugs, money, or liquor in the universe. But anyway, we get to the hotel, go have some dinner. This is in Paris, and where we're staying is right along, I think it's called the Rhine River. Mm-hmm. And I can look out my window and see Big Ben, the clock.
Right.
So I lay down because I'm tired. I've flown from South Colombia to Holland, and he took me on a tour of the red light district, and he pointed out this one place. He said, I want to buy you a training installation right there. He wanted me to train girls to wrestle in a window.
Wow.
Right. First red flag.
Right.
We go out to dinner, we eat, and now, as I told you, I left home at 14. I've slept under viaducts, I've slept in doorways with newspapers for covers, all that crap. So my survival instinct was very high at the time. Mm-hmm. And the next thing I know, I wake up, my hand's right here, and Ernie's hand, and I've got his hand like this, and I'm cocking back on it.
Right.
And he's pushing forward towards my chest area. And I told him, he kept pushing. I said, Ernie, I'll break your fucking wrists. And this guy's standing there in boxer shorts, and that's all he's got on.
He definitely had a game plan.
Yeah, a losing game plan.
He did.
I was no angel, but I chose who I slept with.
Right.
And that him being a choice, oh God, no. That man wasn't beat by the ugly stick. He was beat by the whole damn forest. This guy is standing there in his boxer shorts. I got a hold of his wrist. I'm getting ready to pop it. And he is not white. This man was so white, he was translucent. And his legs, and I happened to look as he was leaving. Now imagine this piece of tape is the bottom of his boxer shorts, right?
Okay.
His leg looked like this inside the boxer shorts. The boxers are all the way out here.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
he was a small guy.
Oh, yeah. And so after that, he kept trying. Right. One day he really aggravated me. And I was driving the Jag, because he wanted me to drive his Jag on the Autobahn, which, I wanted to too. Now understand, I have been driving a stick shift since I learned to drive at 8 years old with 3 on the tree, mm-hmm. on the column. So I preferred a stick over automatic. For some reason, driving that Jag, every time I went into second, I just couldn't hit second. I just kept grinding the gears. I know he had to replace that flywheel when I was done. But he asked me, he said, well, what would you do if I took your passport? And I looked at him straight up and I said, after I beat the living shit out of you, I'm going to go to the American consulate and I'm going to file every charge that I can file against you.
Oh, wow.
And he looked at me. He said, Vicky, I don't understand. I'm a duke. I've got money. I've got women falling at my feet. I said, Ernie, your feet and your money don't mean shit to me. Well, what's your price? Everybody has a price. I looked him right dead in the eye and I said, love. I said, I don't love you at all. I can say I got to see, walk under the Arc de Triomphe. I got to, go through all the nice, shops in Paris. I went to the Colosseums, all that stuff. As long as I could ignore him, I had a good time, but it was a fight the whole time I was there.
I'm sure it was.
When I got back, and I didn't know this until 40 years later, Moolah was so mad she couldn't see straight. And Velvet heard her say, I can't believe she didn't sleep with him. I just can't believe she didn't sleep with him. Now, her parting comment to me before I got on the plane was, now, Vicky, the nicer you are to Ernie, the nicer your payday will be. And, hon, you need a real good payday right now.
Wow.
Within 24 hours of me getting back and not having slept with this troll, he's not even as good looking as a troll. I'd sleep with a troll first. Was within 24 hours, Moolah called me into her office, told me that I owed her 2 months back rent, and I'll take that outfit, and those boots for your back rent. And you need to find a job to pay your rent, or you need to get the hell off my property. And I left the property that day with $20 in my pocket with everything I own packed in my Chevy station wagon. And to this day, 40 years later, I'm still waiting on a phone call from Junior. That man never checked on me one time.
Not once?
Not once.
Wow. Yeah, and I hear you go. It's been said for a long time that Moolah was a horrible person. That's my comments here.
Well, actually, Moolah was not a horrible person. I look at Moolah. There's Moolah, the wrestler. Mm-hmm. Then there's Lillian Ellison, the booker.
Right.
Lillian Ellison, the booker, is a piece of trash. She's a thief. She's a liar. She's a conniver, and she's a manipulator. If you went to her property and you didn't have any backing like I didn't, you were fresh meat. And she'd use you up any way you could. If you had backing like Velvet did and Susan and I did, where your family was constantly, in communication, right. She left you alone.
She didn't have a choice.
Right. But Moolah, the wrestler, because of her ability, because of the road that she paved for people like me, Moolah was a hell of a wrestler. And that should never be taken away. All of this, kicking her out of the Hall of Fame, and this aggravates me more than anything, is when they took her name off that Battle Royal.
Yeah, that was something I was wanting to get into. Yeah, I mean.
No, they should have never done that.
Right.
If Snickers wasn't going to back the WWE for putting Moolah's name on that Battle Royal, then they better back out of football, baseball, basketball, soccer. How many men? Let's start with what's his name? Michael Vick. Babe Ruth. Michael Vick killed hundreds of dogs.
Right.
I was living 60 miles from his house. The whole world has no clue how bad that place was. It was, you could smell the decay a mile away.
Yeah.
There weren't 15 or 20 dead dogs there. There were hundreds. And yeah, I know that because, I know that because I was involved with animal rescue.
Okay.
Babe Ruth was nothing but a womanizer, a jerk, a fighter, a drunk. How many baseball players, football players of any male sports do you know that have had charges, domestic charges? Uh, uh, what was the wreck where the guy was drunk and all he had to do was call and there was a limo at to service him. All he had to do was, hey, James, bring the limo around. Instead, he went out driving and got in a car wreck and killed somebody. Snickers still backs that. Why weren't they, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
You notice that, like, even in today's world, a lot of advertisers, they will pull away if they're told to pull away from a sponsor.
Yeah.
From a product. Yeah, it's really crazy like that. I mean, how Snickers would just step in and tell Vince, well, we're going to pull our money away, and if you don't pull her off there, and he caved.
Vince has got enough money in his wallet to cover what Snickers paid. Give me a break.
Right, but I figured him being the man he was, I figured he wouldn't have caved to that. I figured he would have told him to go fuck off pretty much.
Exactly. That's what I expected. As much as I did, and I think that was the day that just solidified everything that I knew about him. Let's not mention him turning my business into a TNA show.
Yeah.
The last time I watched the WWE, I believe it was in 88. It was when he had the show in Kuwait for the soldiers.
Oh, 91, I believe.
All right, it may have been 91. It was before my son was born, I know that.
Right.
And I was up late and I had a 55-inch DLP and I happened to turn it on and it turned on to WWE. And they're talking about, it shows they're in Kuwait, the soldiers are the crowd, and they're talking about this contest that they're going to have with 3 of the girls. Well, when I'm watching a wrestling show and you're talking about contest, I'm thinking wrestling. They're going to have 2 girls wrestle. The winner of that match is going to wrestle the 3rd girl. The winner of that match is going to be Santa's little helper to Triple H.
Ah, yeah, you're talking to Attitude. Excuse me, I'm on the wrong time frame. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, here come the girls in their short little outfits, which all of us had our short little outfits. That's not a problem. I didn't notice they were wearing high heels instead of wrestling boots.
Yeah.
They get in, they take off their jackets. There are literally 3 triangles this big and butt floss.
Yeah.
I almost put my foot through the DLP. They had a dance off. And the only thing missing was the frickin' pole. And I about put my foot through the DLP. That was the last time I ever, and it was the same night that I saw Moolah and May up there. And this happened before I saw the dance off. Moolah and May were in these black and red checkered shorts, this schoolgirl outfit gimmick they were wearing.
Yeah.
And the finish to the match was either Moolah or May sat on the girl's face. And because they were so old, their nether region stunk so bad that it knocked the girl out. That was the last time I ever watched the WWE.
That was when Moolah won the title again, right? That was probably about 99 or something like that, 98. Yeah, it was somewhere in that area.
But when was the big screw on Wendy?
The
fast count.
Oh, that was Spider Lady, right?
That wasn't Spider Lady. That was Moolah.
That's what I'm saying. Which one are you talking? The fast count?
Yeah, I'm talking about Spider Lady. When they did the fast count because Wendy wouldn't drop the belt to Moolah.
Yeah, that was around 85.
Oh, okay. That wasn't long after I left then.
Right. They said you were in the arena. Were you there?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I was not in the arena.
Okay.
If that was in 85, I was not in the arena. I have not stepped inside any of Vinnie Mac's buildings during a wrestling match since the day I left the property in probably December of either December. It was probably about December of 84 or January of 85. And from the day that I broke my neck, which was the first week in September, I've never been, I did not go to any matches after that.
I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, do you ever regret getting into business?
No.
No.
No, I don't regret it at all. I was a 14-year-old dropout, and the LGBT community helped me, made sure I wasn't put out, on the street. From there, I went into the wrestling community, and once I was part of the wrestling community, they literally, to this day, I will say, it saved my life because I was taken right in. I was little sister, and you didn't screw with little sister.
Yep.
In any way, shape, or form. If Eric Emery told me the story, and I had no clue. He told me the story, and I think it was 2013. We were at a reunion at Scott Teal's house, and Eric walked up to me, and the first thing he said was, "Hey, how the hell are you doing?" Because it was one of the first places I had been in 40 years. I said, "I'm fine." He said, "Do you want to know how many nights you kept me up?" And I kind of looked at him because Eric and I never had anything going. I said, "Huh?" He said, "Do you know that every time you crawled out that window at Sandy Barr's house and you went off walking, you remember when one of us would come pick you up?" I said, "Yeah, I couldn't figure out how I'm in Portland walking, down Lombard Street, and one of the boys just happened to be driving." He said, "Yeah, every damn time you climbed out that window at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, one of us got a phone call from Sandy Barr, and he said, 'That crazy bitch is out walking again. Will you go pick her up?'"
So we had quite a few times picking you up there.
Oh, yeah. I was a wild child.
That is awesome. I want to ask you a few questions here before we wrap this up here. Your favorite moment in the wrestling business that you experienced?
Yeah. One of the top 10. Judy Martin, and bless her heart, I've told this story in front of her. Judy and I were on a match. It was live TV, no delay. And I don't know if you know, but Judy had large bobos.
She did, yes.
Very large bobos. And every time she'd cover you, it'd be like this. And you couldn't breathe. Well, we're on, I mean, she didn't do it on purpose. She just, there was only one place for them to go.
Right. There ain't no other spots.
Right. And being on the road with Judy, and I can say this about Leilani, Velvet, Wendy, Despina, any of those girls, being on the road with them wasn't a job. It was a vacation. So I got in the ring and I was in a mood. And the first time, now we're, like I said, understand, live TV, no delay. And the first time she covered me, I blew a Zerbert on her chest.
Oh, wow.
She jumped up like a scalded cat. And she's running around the ring and she's grabbing the referee. She's putting him in front of her and she's pointing at me, but she can't say what I did. And all I could do was lay there and roll on the mat and giggle.
I'm sure. Oh, that's awesome. What happened when you got in the back? Did she say anything?
You!
Yeah, you're definitely going to get that one there.
Oh yeah, it was you.
Favorite rib you ever saw in the business?
The one me and Tony Bourne played on his son.
Oh God, what happened?
Matt Bourne was coming up in Portland at the same time I was. And I guess Matt had this crush on me. But Matt wasn't my style.
Okay.
You know, I wouldn't sleep with a wrestler just because they were a wrestler. Some girls would do that.
Yes.
No. You have to be, I don't care if you're dropping flies at Burger King. If you're attractive, that's one thing. And I don't care, like I said, with the ugly duck, how much money you've got or anything else. If I'm not attracted, I'm not attracted. That's all there is to it. Well, Matt was like the little boy on the school ground pulling my pigtails. And this is kind of gross. Aw, she loves her daddy.
She does.
This is a little bit gross, but and Matt had done a lot of things, but this time, Tony, we were in the Chautauqua dressing room, and he reached in and he pulled my underwear out of my bag. And he holds them up in front of all the guys, and they were stained. And he said, "Look, she can't even wipe her ass right." And I looked over with him at him, just like, "Matt, that's blood." Well, he dropped him quicker than, anything. So that was a Saturday night. The following Thursday was always Eugene. So we're in Eugene, which is a cinder block schoolhouse, and we're all dressing together in the gym, in the bathrooms behind the gym. And Tony Bourne calls me over. Now, understand, another rule that Sandy beat into our heads with a hammer was, when an old timer or a veteran talks, you shut your mouth, you open your ears, you listen, and you do what you're told. Well, Tony says, "Princess, I want you to sit on my lap. I want you to put your hands around my neck, and I want you to go with whatever I do." Tony was always a gentleman. I mean, Tony would literally, if Velvet and I were in the shower, Tony would be one of the boys that would be standing there and going, "You ain't going in there. The girls are in there."
Right.
That was, Stan stays. Yeah. Most of the guys were like that, but, Tony was one of those guys. So I sit on Tony's lap. I put my hands around his neck. We're just sitting there, talking this, that, or something else. And all of a sudden, Tony lays a lip lock on me from hell.
Oh, boy.
He bends me over backwards. The only thing keeping me from falling out of his lap is he's got, I've got my hands around his neck. And all of a sudden you hear clunk. Oh, hell fucking no. It was Matt Bourne.
Right. Oh, wow.
Tony sits me up, looks around me, looks at Matt, and says, "You will not disrespect my new wife, your stepmother, like that." For one solid week. Wherever Tony Bourne was, I was. Wherever I was, Tony Bourne was. We shared room. I rode in the car with him. We ate together. We drank together, the whole 9 yards. For a solid week, Matt Bourne thought I was his new stepmama.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it was beautiful. He never bothered me again.
And he didn't know about this, that you guys were ribbing him?
He had no idea. Everybody else did. Well, everybody was sick of the crap he was. Matt had his good side, but Matt was an asshole.
That's what I've heard. I mean, I was watching, some videos on him as well.
Well, and I'm sure it was something in his childhood, and he just never grew out of it. He had his demons, and it's a sad thing because Matt was a hell of a wrestler, you know.
He was,
but he had no respect for women.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's crazy how things were back in the 80s versus today. Like, they stay the same, but yet they're different.
Right.
You know, on all that. But, yeah, I got a couple more questions. Just going to finish this up here. Do you watch today's product?
I watch ROH when I can find it.
Okay.
ROH is pretty much what I watch on TV. I go to the BCW matches here in Guthrie, Oklahoma, run by Terry and his wife, Stephanie, BCW. They're old school. It's old school matches. You know, it's old school from the start to the finish. And that's basically what I watch. I've been in some dressing rooms that I was not impressed with at all. One of my biggest pet peeves, and listen, youngins, is when I'm in a dressing room and the guys are talking their match through from the first time they wipe the sweat off their foreheads, you know, which leg they're going to come into the ring with first. And they're talking for 2.5 hours over a 10-minute match.
They scripted it really bad.
What happens when something screws up? And I've seen it happen. Everybody in the ring goes, oh shit, what do I do now?
Gotta learn that on the fly.
And the worst sentence you can say in front of me is, well, I got to get my this in, or I got to get my that in.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not yours. That's just something you copied from somebody else. You know, you may have changed the name to it, but it's still a pile driver.
It is. And you see that quite often in today's wrestling.
Well, and it's, you know, I got to get my this in and my that. When does consideration for the people whose asses are in the seats come in? You know, when do you listen to them? When do you draw them into the story? If you're so busy doing your this and your that, you're not paying attention to what's going on in those seats. And I'm going to tell you what, I am very much in touch with my fans. And I would say overall, 98% of them are sick of what's going on. They're tired of the bumpity bump, 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 my this, my that, my the other thing. They are screaming from the bottom of their souls, we want old school wrestling.
I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that quite often. You know, a lot of people are tired of the spot fest. It's like this spot, that spot, my spot, the dog spot.
Yeah, the cat spot. Sorry, cat. But I went to Cameron Starr was promoting wrestling in Portland, Oregon. Or was it Vancouver? No, it was Portland. Anyway, I went to his first match. And unlike a lot of promoters these days, and I use the term loosely, he wasn't in the main event. He was not putting himself over as the new champion because he's got X amount of dollars mommy and daddy or grandma and grandpa left him. Mm-hmm. He was in the first match. And they did a 20-minute time limit draw match.
Okay.
No heel, no baby face, totally technical wrestling. We're talking hammerlocks, reverse hammerlocks, headlocks, you know, ropes. He threw the guy into the turnbuckle, and the guy hit the turnbuckle so hard the ring slid almost a foot. When they got done with this match, the crowd for it was 10-minute draw. That's right, not 20. The crowd for 10 minutes after that match were hollering 10 more minutes. They want, and I mean literally everyone in the building was hollering 10 more minutes. That's how well, that's how starved they are for old school wrestling. They don't want to see TNA. At least not in a wrestling match. What's the cat up to?
She was into something. I was just checking on her, making sure she was okay. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They really want that. They want the old school feeling where people actually worked in the ring. They worked the crowd. They felt like they got their money's worth.
Right, right, and that was one thing Sandy always pounded. I don't care if there's 5 people or 5,000 people in that arena. You wrestle like there's 50,000.
That is right. Well, is there anything that you're doing right now? What are you doing nowadays?
Well, I've written a book.
Okay.
And if I had been a good girl, I would have had the book sitting here. I meant to, and I forgot. It's called Princess Victoria, A Tale of Tears, Triumphs, and Turnbuckles. You can find me on Facebook under Vicky Otis, Vicki, Otis, Otis, on Facebook. And you can contact me. I can give you an autographed, personalized copy of it, including shipping, $35. Or you can get an unautographed book at Amazon for $16.99. Or you can get it from sleepwrestle.com.
Okay.
That's John Cosper, my co-author, runs that site.
That's awesome.
I've been making jewelry, Indian chokers and such, which I really love to do. I sell them once again on Facebook. You can see it. I've been going to a few matches here and there, doing a few, virtual signings and all. I was at the Gathering last year, and I'm hoping to go again this year. It just hasn't been solidified yet. And there is a chance, and I'm working on it. I haven't talked Velvet into it yet, and I'm trying to give her some time, that there is a possibility in the next year that Velvet and I may show up at the Gathering or some other WrestleCon.
Oh, wow.
And we will be together for the first time in over 40 years, since September of 84, signing autographs. I also have 8x10s that I'm selling. Once again, on my Facebook page, I have 8x10s of Velvet and I, 2 different poses. Her autograph and mine on the same 8x10. They're $25 a piece.
Definitely. Make sure you check that out. Go to Vicky Otis. She is on Facebook. I'll drop a link down there in the comment section so they can get to you. A lot of great stuff. I'm going to have to get with you about the jewelry as well. But thank you all for tuning in here. I'm Dr. Quack. Thank you, Victoria, Princess Victoria, for showing up here. Definitely a great interview. Enjoyed this whole experience here. Up next, we will have Landfill, the promoter from Revolution. We will have him on Monday. I'm Dr. Quack, and we'll see you next time.